So there's this amazing thing that I'm starting to realize for myself, and that is that this thing we call our life and this evolving healing journey really is never done. I think something super magical starts to happen, especially when we're talking about Ayurveda, this path to crafting and creating a life that has as much beauty and purpose as possible. It's really important to remember that you are not a project to be solved, and you're not a problem to be fixed. That is really what we're all about over here at the Shakti School and at Ayurveda School specifically. Now, of course, we're going to give you all of the amazing tips, tricks, and tools to have a great life and to feel amazing. But more importantly, we're going to offer you space to connect to yourself and the divinity that lives within. That is why I am so excited to announce that we have an early bird special happening right now. You guys, it ends September 30th. After that, prices go up by $500. So get in before the end of September. You can also book a call with a graduate who will answer any of your questions so you can gain clarity and see if this program is right for you. We're going to put a link to book that in the show notes. Welcome to the Spirit Sessions podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us where I'll help you find your true spiritual home, where every single aspect of you is holy ground, holy ground, holy ground, holy ground.
This is Spirit Session Podcast with Katie Silcox. Venga chicos, empezamos. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hi everyone, Katie here. This podcast is intended to inspire you, educate you, and most importantly, support you on your journey towards knowing who you really are, that inner self, that inner teacher. I am not a psychologist or a medical doctor and do not offer professional health or medical advice on this podcast. If you are suffering from any kind of psychological or medical issue, please do the right thing and seek help from your qualified health professional. Welcome to Spirit Sessions Podcast. Y'all know the drill. Every single time I'm like, I'm so excited, and it's never a lie. I am really excited to have a friend of mine and a beautiful colleague, Dr. Trevor Cates, onto our show today. She is a medical doctor, a naturopathic doctor, and the author of the best-selling skincare book, Clean Skin from Within. She is also the creator of a 9-part documentary series called Hormones, Health, and Harmony. And she specializes in helping women feel confident and radiant from within. Dr. Cates, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with you.
Well, so for those of people listening, you and I met at a conference, and I was really drawn to you. And I mean, we didn't get a lot of time to talk, but one of the things that I noticed about you was this sort of radiance, this quality of, I mean, you're beautiful, but there was a glowing quality to your skin. And then you gave me this little travel pack of skincare. And I was like, oh, okay, I get stuff all the time from people. And I went back to the hotel room later and I used all of it. And I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing skincare line. So we're going to get into that in a moment, but why don't you just let our listeners know about your journey? Like, why are you focusing on skin?
Yeah, absolutely. I started off as a child with a lot of health issues and a lot of allergies, hay fever, and but a lot of it showed up on my skin. Eczema, hives, mysterious bumps and rashes, and just irritated, itchy, sensitive skin. And so my parents took me to see a lot of different doctors, different specialists, and they gave me different medications, but I would have allergic reactions or adverse reactions to everything that I was given. And so I just kept feeling more and more miserable. It was with skin issues, anybody that struggled with skin issues, especially on your face, not only is it physically challenging, but it can be embarrassing as well. And I remember it being embarrassing, but thankfully my parents didn't give up looking for answers, and they eventually found a holistic practitioner that they took me to. And it was the one thing that really turned my health around, that turned things around for me, for my skin. But not only was it my skin, but I also just felt like a normal kid, right? I just started to feel like I could really live life. And so I remember though thinking, why did I have to go through all of this to find this option? Why didn't the doctors present this right from the get-go as one of the things that we could do? And so it planted a seed early on. That's what led me to learn about naturopathic medical school and go there. But, it's interesting because it wasn't until I've been practicing for about 10 years that I started to focus on skin. And that's because I was doing 2-week weight loss programs out of the Waldorf Astoria Spa where I was seeing patients. And at the end of the 2 weeks, my patients would say, Dr. Cates, I've lost weight. I feel great. But what surprises me is my skin. I didn't know my skin could be this healthy and glowing, and that these skin issues would disappear, and that just this sense of vitality of my skin. And to me, I was like, well, of course, it makes sense. But I realized that not many people had been taught to look at skin as an outer reflection of our overall health. It was something that I learned at a very young age. So it would just sort of was part of who I was and how I thought about skin and being a naturopathic physician. But I realized that so many people, when they look at skin, they think, oh, what can I do? Dermatologist is going to give you a topical steroid. You're going to be put on a medication, or you're just going to figure out how to wear makeup. As women, we just get creative with makeup, wear more moisturizer, whatever it is, and without really realizing our skin is our largest organ. And the great thing about it is it's right on the surface of our bodies. We don't need special imaging equipment to see our skin, like we know an X-ray or something, CT scan, but we could just look in the mirror at our skin and it gives us great clues about our health. And so that's what led me to write my first book, Clean Skin from Within, and then also my next book, Natural Beauty Reset.
As you're talking, I'm thinking we come from different backgrounds, but Ayurveda says the same thing. The skin is a byproduct is a tissue layer of a long process that starts with what we call ahara rasa, or this primary food intake. And so what you eat downriver, it goes through your blood and your fat and your muscle, and skin is one of these byproducts. And so we can really see the state of what's going on in your imbalance through your skin. And so tell us, you call skin the magic mirror. What are some of the ways that you see imbalances in people's skin? And I know it's very complex, but what are some of the correlations you see, and maybe even the emotional correlations?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are, what I found, and I talk about in my first book, there are 6 root causes behind skin issues. And a lot of them, if you hear them, there are things like nutritional deficiencies, inflammation, microbiome imbalance, hormonal imbalances, oxidative damage, these kinds of things, and blood sugar issues. These are things that not only impact our skin, but our overall health. So if we look at what our skin, the messages that might be giving us, skin is oftentimes one of the early warning signs of
Nice.
things like
Yeah.
hormonal imbalances, for
Yeah.
example. And so like for low thyroid function, one of the earliest signs of that is dry skin. Now, just having dry skin isn't enough to diagnose you with hypothyroidism, but if you have dry skin and then you also start feeling fatigue, you're experiencing hair loss, constipation, maybe some weight gain, then you want to talk to your doctor about getting thyroid testing done to see what's going on with your thyroid. Or if you're highly stressed and your adrenals are in overdrive and you're producing a lot of cortisol, you might notice your skin is more irritated, inflamed. So that might be an early warning sign of an increase in cortisol, an overproduction of cortisol. And cortisol it has this diurnal variation. So it's higher in the morning and lower at night, but some people will just get it. It's high all the time, or it's low all the time, or it's low in the morning and high at night. And so having irritated skin, sensitive skin, that can be one of the early warning signs. So there are a lot of these things that I think a lot of times we just start to use more moisturizer, or we just go to the dermatologist, say, hey, can you give me a topical, or they might prescribe something to suppress the symptom. But what I'm hoping is that people instead will start looking and going, wait, this is a change in my skin. What am I doing differently? What other symptoms do I have? Is this something I need to really look into? And sometimes it's just a matter of modifying your lifestyle, and the foods that you eat, the personal care products you use can play a role in that. But a lot of it comes from the inside out.
Let's go into that. So, I mean, we are such a huge proponent at Shakti School of natural living, and in hopefully a non-dogmatic way. Like I don't, not every beauty product that I own is 100% made of like dirt and turmeric and beetroot, right? Like, I myself don't have a perfect grasp around this, but I do my best to, and I really believe in how the skin is your biggest organ and it eats whatever you put on it. And yet, there's this one makeup that I love that's not organic. And so, can you talk a little bit about the importance of, I think our listeners know that we don't want to have chemicals in our beauty products, but what would you like to say around why that is really more important than we may know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there are multiple reasons. One is, I've been talking about hormones, and it's a big part of what I talk about in my book, Natural Beauty Reset, is that as women, we tend to have a lot of hormonal fluctuations throughout our lives, throughout the day. Like I just mentioned, cortisol changes throughout the day, and for women throughout the month, throughout our lives. And as we get older, we tend to use more personal care products. But one of the problems is that a lot of products have a group of chemicals called endocrine disrupting chemicals in there. And so these are hormone disrupting chemicals. There's been a lot of research connecting endocrine disrupting chemicals with imbalances in hormones. So basically what happens is these chemicals will bind to hormone receptors in the body, and it interferes with the way that our hormones function. So the body might think actually it has estrogen on its receptor when it's actually a toxin instead. So then the body starts acting like it has more estrogen or more thyroid, or it might actually turn off or down regulate. So then that's why we're seeing more rates of thyroid disease. We're seeing women having a lot of struggles with their periods, early puberty, early menopause, changes with a lot of the symptoms that we have, weight problems, because insulin is a hormone too. So many breast cancer, all of these things that are on the rise. And that is because we're exposed to so many of these personal care products, also in our food, water, a lot of cleaning products, a lot of the chemicals in our environment. So I know it starts to get kind of depressing when you think about it, but the good news is that there are alternatives that we can look for. So you want to focus on the areas where you have the most control and things that you consume or use on a daily basis. So those are the most important things, because if you get exposed to something once, or maybe like, occasionally.
Right, like a red lipstick, one event, twice a year.
Right. So it does depend though. I am going to say.
Yeah, push back. I love it.
So yeah, I mean, usually the body's really good at removing toxins of the body. We've got our liver, our kidneys, even our skin, our lymphatic system, our digestive system. All of this is like help designed to get things out. But unfortunately, there are some chemicals being created that our body just doesn't know what to do with. So then it just stores them.
Things
So
out.
these are heavy metals are some of those that just, so if there's I mean, lead is not something that we typically see, but unfortunately, there are still products that are contaminated with lead, and clothing, personal care products. Unfortunately, a lot of times, if they're coming from other countries like China, where there are different regulations, they might still have heavy metals in them, or heavy metals just continue to exist in our environment. They don't just go away. So that's the way we still get exposed to them. Plus, there are these group of chemicals called forever chemicals, the PFAS, PFAS. And I'm not going to try and pronounce what they stand for, but PFAS, let's just call them PFAS. And these are known as forever chemicals. And they are so I brought it up with lipstick, long wear lipsticks and mascara. So if you have like that long
I've got the long wear, Dr. Trevor. Okay, this is so good. I'm doing a massive clean out after this podcast.
Yeah. So, the reason why they're called forever chemicals is they last in the environment. They last in our bodies. They don't get out of our bodies very easily.
Not okay. It's just so sad that this is legal. This is what I don't understand. It's like, I don't know if the listeners feel this way. It's like you have to be a damn detective in this life today, where you really do have to advocate for every level of your own health.
Yeah, right. And I know that, so it's interesting. It's like eventually things will sometimes get banned. Like, so PFAS are also they're used in like Teflon, right? So the non-stick cookware. And so companies started to change and eliminate one of the chemicals and switch to a different one.
Another one.
Yeah, but then the problem is then the research comes out that, okay, that chemical is gone, but this other one is still an issue, creating some of the same effects. And so, I mean, I think the more we can get back to natural ingredients, and and that includes our cookware, our clean, drinking purified water, eating organic foods to reduce pesticides, which are also hormone disrupting chemicals, but using personal care products too that contain natural ingredients. And of course, some are worse than others. So, I mean, you could pick your battles, but again, try and avoid these endocrine disrupting chemicals, the PFAS, and then also, you could kind of go overboard, but things like fragrance has a number of endocrine disrupting chemicals in it. Parabens, which a lot of companies have taken out, but some companies still surprisingly have parabens in there. And these are known to have estrogen mimicking effects. Like I was mentioning, kind of the body sees it on the receptor and it's like, oh, I think this is estrogen. So I'm going to, act like I have more estrogen in the body. And so, if we could just kind of shift away from these, the good news is there are things like organic essential oils, which is what we use in the Spa Doctor skincare products, or you could go fragrance free. You can make your own skincare products, DIY skincare. There are a lot of options now for people to get away from those.
Yeah. So in your book that's coming out, I mean, I have your first book, but your second one that I think is coming out in a few weeks, The Natural Beauty Reset. All right. Congrats. I know how hard it is to write and get a book out into the world. In the book, do you offer insights on, personally, I'm like, okay, I'm looking at Dr. Trevor. She looks radiant and beautiful. She uses her own skincare line, I'm sure, which we'll definitely give links to in the show notes. But like things like makeup, are there brands that you love? Are there resources for this in the book where we could potentially throw away all this yucky stuff and have alternative brands? And what's super cool about that from a conscious capitalism perspective is we're supporting these brands with our money.
Yeah, I know. And unfortunately, the beauty skincare industry is kind of shady. Not kind of, it's actually just shady,
It's
let's just
shady
say.
as shit.
And so, it's
Say
interesting,
more.
right? So as a naturopathic physician and a skincare manufacturer, I have like this really unique perspective on personal care products. And so I do talk about it and Natural Beauty Reset. I talk about it in my first book and also in Natural Beauty Reset, and ways that you can kind of shift away and how to really understand what are the main things that you want to avoid. We
Mhm.
also want to make sure that we're improving our body's detoxification pathways too, so that when we do get exposed to these, that our body does its best job that it can. I mean, honestly, one of the biggest things I talk about in Natural Beauty Reset is it's amazing how wise our bodies are. Our bodies have this incredible innate wisdom. And when we just reconnect to nature and our natural rhythms as women, then it's pretty incredible what the body is capable of. But when we put these interfering factors in here, endocrine disrupting chemicals, big food triggers, and major stressors, certain medications, there's certain things, if we put them in, not getting enough sleep, high amounts of stress, not managing stress very well, all of these things can just kind of create this, that we get out of alignment. But we can restore our body's innate ability. And so hopefully we can do everything we can so that when we do get exposed to these things, our body knows what to do with it
Mm.
the best of its ability. Now, before I talk more about like how I do that, I do want to mention a resource for people. So Environmental Working Group, if people aren't familiar with ewg.org, they have a skin deep database. And I talk about this in my book as well. But you can go in and you can put in the name of a makeup product
Oh, wow.
or a sunscreen or what, and it'll, if it's in their system, it'll show you a rating and how it is, how dangerous it may be and why it's rated that way. Or if you can't find that particular product but you see the list of ingredients, you can insert an ingredient in there and it'll kind of give you the rating on that. So then that's a
Mm.
great way to get an idea. There are also apps that where you could just scan sometimes the barcode and I'll give
Wow.
you a rating. So there are some great tools out there to make it easier for us. EWG also has a verified, they have a verification of what they consider truly clean
Wow.
skincare products. And so this product or my skincare products are EWG verified. So you'll find them on there, but you can find other, we don't make makeup. So that would be a place where you could go and find out more about your makeup.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I wonder what your thoughts are on sunscreen because I know for me, I live in Virginia. It's so hot. It is very sunny. And then in the winters, I'm often in sunny places as well. And, we understand now the value of vitamin D and the need for a little bit of sunlight every day on the skin. And yet I don't want to blast my skin all of the time with sun. What can you offer up in terms of natural sunscreen?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, really great question. Sun is so important to us. And as a naturopathic physician, and I talk a lot about this in Natural Beauty Reset, the importance of the sun. And in fact, I talk about a seasonal approach, which I know you'll love with the, more of an Ayurvedic approach, too, that we need to change things up
Mhm.
based upon where the sun is.
Yeah.
And so our needs for food, movement, mindset, skincare, change with the seasons, and that has to do with where the sun is located, right? If it's further away or if it's closer. And so it's important for us to get outdoors. I mean, I think it's really important for us to get outdoors or at least get exposure to sunlight first thing in the morning. That actually helps our melatonin, our cortisol hormones, and that sort of helps them reset so that we can get that energy in the morning that we need. So of course, that means sun protection as well. If we're getting out there and enjoying the sun and we're enjoying nature. And I grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia. I know exactly your climate.
It
And I
is
live,
like it is a swamp right
yeah.
now. It's like you open the door and it smells like a wet puppy out here.
And I'm in Park City, Utah, which is
Dry.
still warm right now, but it's super, super dry and we're really high up. So we're close to the sun. So we are particularly susceptible to sun damage. So we really want to find a balance, because also when the sun touches our skin, that's how we get vitamin D made in the body. And vitamin D is actually a pro hormone. It's really interconnected with our hormones. It also helps our immune system, helps prevent a lot of different chronic diseases. So we definitely need good vitamin D levels. So, but the thing is that we don't need a ton of sun exposure to get vitamin D. It does vary upon the pigmentation that you have in your skin, where in the world you live. Like for me, I'm closer to the sun, so I don't need as much. Also, I have fair skin. Somebody who has fair skin doesn't need as much sun exposure as someone who has darker skin, more pigmentation in their skin. And so those are the kinds of things, and also the time of year. In the summer, we don't need we don't in summer, we don't need as much. In the middle of the day, we don't need as much sun exposure. So what I typically tell people, if you can go out in the sun in the non-peak hours, like earlier in the day or later in the day, and just even for 5 to 10 minutes, get some unexposed skin to the sun in the times of the year when you can. And that is usually enough to keep your vitamin D levels where they need to be. And so when you wear sunscreen, though, it does block that. So what I usually suggest is go ahead and put sunscreen or wear hats, cover your face, because year round, that's where we get the most sun exposure. And that, of course, could lead to accelerated signs of aging. So wearing hats, trying to get in the shade when you can, and then wearing a good sunscreen. And what I prefer for sunscreen is a zinc oxide based sunscreen instead of the chemical sunscreens. And if you're going to use a chemical sunscreen, there are certain ingredients you definitely want to stay away from, like oxybenzone. Oxybenzone is one of these endocrine disrupting chemicals. There are some other ones, but my concern is that, again, they'll take out oxybenzone, they'll put in another chemical sunscreen, but we know zinc oxide is safe. So I suggest that people stick with that, like more of a mineral based sunscreen.
Well, what's so amazing though, when, most of my products are natural, I never use chemical sunscreens, I don't use perfume. And what's amazing is when you've been for many years in that modality, when I walk by someone with perfume, it feels like an assault, and not in a, oh, I'm a sensitive snowflake way, in a, wow, my senses are so tuned to the chemical nature of that. And I think that's what people don't realize. Like, I'm thinking about my mom and my Aunt Janice, who will listen to this podcast, and they're these beautiful Southern belles, and like they're used to all these beauty products and they don't even notice it. But then when my sister and I come over, who are like these total hippie girls, they're like, oh my God, what is that horrible, awful smell? And I hope my mom doesn't get mad at me, but this is for science, Mom. This is for the health of women. My mom uses these horrible deodorants. And I mean, in Ayurvedic medicine, your armpit is the root of what we call the line of Spence. In Western medicine, it runs through your breasts and all the way down to your womb, right? And my mom is just like putting on the chemical deodorant, and Mary, my sister, and I are like, don't do that, don't do that. And she keeps using it because I think there's this stigma of, oh my God, I'm going to smell bad if I'm going to have wet armpits if I don't use that. Well, lo and behold, she gets these 2 on each armpit skin tags, and she's like, oh my goodness, do y'all think this has something to do with the deodorant? And we're like, yes. And so I got her this Weleda all natural, and she likes it. And so she's off the crack of armpit, chemistry. So maybe in this last piece, can you just speak to deodorants and how important it is to make especially that area chemical free?
Yeah, what's really, really interesting about antiperspirants in particular is that antiperspirants, they actually change the skin microbiota. They change the bacteria to more malodorous forming bacteria. So
Wait, everyone, she just said if you wear these things, you're going to smell worse.
right. So antiperspirants make you create more bad smelling bacteria. So it actually makes the problem worse. So
Wow.
first of all, stop using antiperspirants. You can use deodorants, but don't use antiperspirants. That's the first thing. I mean, part of it is it's antiperspirant because it blocks your sweat, right? And so that's also just like you were talking about, it's just not a healthy thing. We need to sweat. So deodorants, though, there are natural, essential oil based, or there are a lot of different options. So yeah, definitely switching it up, trying something different. And you know what? I think a lot of people don't realize when you eat a really healthy diet, when your gut is really healthy, you actually don't smell as bad. You don't need
Yeah.
to wear deodorant as much. When you get your skin microbiome in a good place, when you're eating healthy, and if you are finding the need to wear a lot of deodorant, it might be time to look inside.
The diet,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, Ayurveda completely agrees. And in fact, Ayurveda is it's so geeky. I love it. It's like if your sweat smells like sweetness, you've eaten too much of this. If your sweat smells like, sour, you've eaten too much this. Like the sweat is just like the skin. It's this way that the body lets us know the inner imbalance based on our choices. And so it really can be a good indicator.
And it actually is a side effect of certain medications too. That's not like it's listed on the label, but
Yeah.
another reason to think about transitioning off certain medications like sleep medications, for example.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, anything just that you feel like you would want our podcast listeners to know to wrap up? I know you have another thing coming up, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that there is so much out there and it could be overwhelming and confusing. People are searching online. People oftentimes feel like they just don't know where to get really true valid information. But I think it's just starting with simple steps, having your resources, your go-tos too, that you go to, like Katie's podcast and all the great guests that she has on. And finding good resources, reliable resources that that you can trust. And then starting simple, starting with and these are the 4 areas I talk about in Natural Beauty Reset: food, movement, mindset, skincare. These are things that, and again, they change for the season. So what can you do in each of these different areas? So food, maybe you could start your day with a healthy smoothie. Got mine still here. With movement, what is some way you could just start walking or going for a swim or a bike ride or some sort of movement that you can do? Mindset, what is some sort of gratitude exercise or breath work, something that you can do to start incorporating that? What is it that you can do with your skincare? Can you just start switching out of products with fragrance or those long wear makeup products,
Mhm.
and just something simple in each of those areas, and then it just starts to get easier. The longer you do it, the easier it gets. And in my book Natural Beauty Reset, I do a 7-day reset for each season, and it's 7 days
I love that
because it
seasonally.
it's easy. It's 7 days is something we can all do. And so if you could start with 7 days, make some changes in these 4 different areas, it just starts to shift. It starts to change things. And, I've been seeing patients for 22 years. And when I first came out of naturopathic medical school, I was like, you have to change your entire life and you have to do all the things and you have to do it right now. And people are like, what?
Bye.
Crazy. And so I realized that you just have to start, because in 7 days, you'll start to notice a difference in the way that you look and feel. And when you see a difference on your skin and you have more energy, you're sleeping better, you feel more confident, all of these things, it helps you make better choices.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, everybody is going to go buy Natural Beauty Reset. I am excited to be one of those people because I love this idea of seasonal skincare. And maybe just to close, when you say seasonal skincare, you mean transitioning. So a big thing in Ayurvedic medicine is that the imbalances that we experience so often occur during life transitions, especially seasonal transitions. So right now, you and I are literally sitting smack dab in the transition between summer into fall. So what would be a way that my listeners can start to, because a lot of the people listening to this are like way better at being super on it than even me. And I know they're like, I do not have one chemical in my products, but like, what can these women do, or men, to transition their skin from summer to fall?
Yeah, well, a lot of what we think about in the summer is our exposure to sun. So a lot of us spend more time in the sun. The sun is closer to us, so we're getting more of that sun damage. So what can we do going into fall to help with that overexposure? So what happens with overexposure to the sun is we tend to get more we have oxidative damage that occurs, so more free radical damage in the body. So one of the things is to up your antioxidants, both with what you're eating, maybe even supplements, and also in skincare products. So in the Spa Doctor products, we have a lot of, we're all plant-based ingredients. So plant-based oils that are rich in vitamin C and vitamin E, tocopherol. So it's great to kind of give your body a boost of antioxidants, so to help protect and kind of reverse some of that damage that's occurred. So that's one thing. And like gentle exfoliation, not over exfoliation. I think that it's one of the biggest mistakes that people make with skincare. The two biggest ones are the cleansers that they use, over cleansing, stripping the skin. I love our cleanser as an oil-based cleanser, has a great pH. It doesn't strip the skin. And then the other thing is exfoliation. People will just use they feel like the more, the better. So they're just really rough brushes and things. And you don't need all of that. Our exfoliant is finely ground, and it feels like finely ground sand, really, really fine. And you just use light pressure. You don't need a lot. And we also have, I love the Conjac sponge. It's a biodegradable plant-based ingredient. And the sponge is made of that. And when you get it wet, it's very soft, but still exfoliating. So doing things like that to help your skin cell turnover, it's just nice going from one season to the next. That transition is a great time to do that. And really, anytime we're transitioning in seasons, it gives us an opportunity to change things. That's why I call it a reset. So the Natural Beauty Reset for fall is going to say, okay, what can I do to kind of get back on track? And then also knowing that winter is ahead. So what does winter mean? Drier climates, typically colder. And then also for when we talk more about mindset, women in particular, tend to be a little bit moodier going into winter. We don't have the sunnier days on our side. So what can you do in fall to start transitioning into that, to kind of plan ahead?
I love it. I just love it. That's so helpful. This has been so amazing. Dr. Trevor, thank you so much for being here. We'll definitely put a link to the Spa Doctor. I'm going to go get some of your products too. I'm like, okay, I've got to get through this set series of products before I buy any more, but I'm sure everyone will check out your new book, Natural Beauty Reset. And I just really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if people that can go anywhere to find Natural Beauty Reset, Amazon or anywhere you like to buy books. But if you want some really fabulous bonuses to go along with the book,
Yes,
you
please.
can go to naturalbeautyreset.com, naturalbeautyreset.com, and you can get $500 worth of electronic downloads of bonuses to help you in alignment with the book, to go ahead and get started.
That's awesome. Cool. We'll definitely link to all of that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
A big special thanks to Kevin Carlisle of Goodbye Gemini, who wrote this beautiful podcast music, and to DJ Juan Pablo Jimenez in southern Spain for mixing it and making it magic.